Not everything needs to be a for loop. Mastering the array methods will improve your craft and code quality significantly. There are many methods we can use when dealing with arrays in JavaScript, and today we'll go through some of the ones I find myself using the most. To make it easier, I prepared an array of employees and some made-up tasks for us to solve using different array methods. The first one is find the employee with an ID of 20. Whenever you want to get the first record that matches a given condition, use the find method. Here's how it works. Employee equals employees find, and then we need to pass in a callback, also known as a testing function that accepts the current item as a parameter and returns a boolean that will be used to decide whether the item is the one we're looking for. And we'll do emp employee ID equals 20. So the find method will loop through all the employees and return the first one that matches the ID with 20. Let's test that and output it to the console. Employee, refresh the page, and here it is, the employee with the ID of 20. Next up, we need to find all the backend developers. You might be inclined to use the same find method, but the find method only returns the first item that matches the condition. To get all the records, we need to use the filter method. Here's how that works. So we have backend employees equals employees filter, and then return if employee.role equals backend. Let's console that, and we'll use table since this is an array and it will look nicer. Refresh, and here are all our free backend developers. Let's move on to the next task, which is check if we have any iOS developers. To do that, we'll use the sum array method. So let have iOS developers, devs, employees, sum, and then we pass in our testing condition. Emp role equals iOS. And this will return a boolean. So console. This will be true because we indeed have iOS developers. And if we enter a missing role like mechanic, this will be false. So the sum method checks if we have at least one item in the array that matches the testing function we pass in. To make sure all the employees are at least 18 years old, we can use the every method. So let old enough employees every, and then we pass in our testing condition, which is employee age must be bigger or equal to 18. And if we refresh, indeed all our employees are older than 18. Next up, we have calculate the total wages we're paying the employees. To do that, we can use the reduce method. And this takes in an accumulator, which will be total, and the current employee, which will be emp. And it should return the total plus the employee wage. And we also need an initial value for the total, which will be 0. So the reduce method will loop through all the employees and add in the employee wage to the total, where the total initial value is 0. So this should give us the total wages for the employees. And this value, I assume it's correct. Well, this is probably the most common use case. The reduce method doesn't always have to return a number. We can use it to return anything. For example, let's find out how many employees each role has, and what is the total wages paid for each role. So let's remove this right here and do at roles employee, reduce roles and then the current employee. And the initial value of the roles will be an empty object. The first thing we need to do is to make sure the roles exist. So if roles of employee.role, we need to give it a default value. So roles, the employee role equals count, which will be the total employee count for this row, and wage, which will also start at 0. So if this employee role doesn't exist, we create it and give it a default value of an object with count and wage 0. Then we need to increase the count plus, so the count will increase with each iteration, and then we also need to increase the wage with the current employee wage and return the roles. There should be roles and this should be returned. And now if we console table the roles, we should see the spread and their wages. Role is not defined. Where is this? Here. Okay, so we have 5 front-end developers and the total wage is 11,300. 3 back-end developers, 1 Android, 2 iOS, 3 full stacks, and so on. Next up, we need to modify the items in the array to also include the employee full name. We can do this using the map method. So new employees equals employees map, and then we pass in the current item in the array, which is employee, and then we need to return a new object. When you're dealing with arrays of objects, you want to avoid changing that object in the array, because if we do something like employee full name equals first name last name, if we do this, we won't only return a new array for the new employees containing the full name, we will also alter the employee inside the employees array. So if we compare the two arrays, you'll see that we've actually modified both of the arrays. So here's the first item from the new employees array, which has the full name, and also the second array was also changed. In fact, it's not the array that changed, it's the object inside that array. So to avoid doing this, we can use the spread operator and return a new object. So we'll do new object and take all the properties from the employee object and add our new one. So let me just go back and grab this and do spread and then add our new property. Now if we refresh, the new array has the full name property, while the second one stayed the same. So no full name property for this one. It's a good idea to avoid mutating, changing the array you're working with so that you don't end up in weird situations where you expected one thing and got another. Here I expected the employees to have the exact same value as it did at the start of the file, but since somewhere along the way it got modified, in order to figure out what happened, I need to go through all the code and check where my array got modified. So that's why it's a good idea to avoid mutating the arrays you are working on, and just return new items when you're dealing with objects inside an array. And our last task is to say hello to each employee. So we'll remove this, and we'll do that using the forEach method. So employees for each employee, and we'll just console hello, and then we'll add the name, first name, and refresh. So here we are saying hello to each employee in the array. So the forEach just loops through each element of the array and executes the callback we pass in. That's it, we're done. There are other methods you can use when dealing with arrays. These were just the ones I think improved my coding skills the most. Bye!